Okay. Welcome. Got Rhonda joining us here. Welcome to the NAP Private Equity Club. And today we're going to talk about how investors make money buying reverse mortgages. And so this is recorded. For those of you who are not able to make it, this will go to our YouTube channel, and I will show you with a quickness what the YouTube channel looks like. For those of you who are watching this podcast or webinar for the first time, you can find us at Naked Notes Podcast, and that's where we will upload this for future reference. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this presentation. So, reverse mortgages, also known as HECMs. HECM stands for Home Equity Conversion Mortgage. So they're taking the equity in the home and converting it into payments from the mortgage. So that's really what HECM stands for, Home Equity Conversion Mortgage. But to the average person, the layman, we call it reverse mortgages. And why is that? It's because, just as a quick recap, I know most of us here are familiar with the product, but a reverse mortgages, all those mortgages created so that the elderly can age in place and not have to leave their home as they are aging. And so what ends up happening is they will take the equity from the home and they will take out monthly payments and use that to pay the mortgage. Or let me correct myself, not to pay the mortgage, because the mortgage now gets added, and that's how the increase happens, right? So every amount of money that they take out and pay, the homeowner now, instead of them paying the mortgage pays them. But every amount that they take out monthly gets added to the back, hence the reverse mortgage. So instead of it going down, it's now going up. And so plenty of our people have been in these places for so long, and as you guys know, over the last 5+ years after the pandemic, the appreciation basically across the map has been astronomical. So with the amount of equity that we have in place, a couple of things that we have seen and how that has affected the market. One, the amount of equity in the new homes, we're seeing less and less non-performing loans come down the pipeline. And that's, again, simply have to do with the function of us having more equity. When a borrower has equity, then they have more exit strategies, right? And so there's less likely for us to end at the foreclosure. Although, as I just showed you recently, for those of you who were on earlier, we have that house in Las Vegas, of which we're foreclosing on. And yeah, there's quite a bit of equity in there. It's an agreement for deed, not a traditional mortgage. But without getting off subject too much, reverse mortgages, that's what they are. Let's go ahead and scroll through, and how do people make money off of them? So once again, the product itself, right? It's just a distressed mortgage. Okay, so first lien position. So just really underwrite it with that expectations that you are going to get an REO or be brought out at the auction. But it sounds all fancy. Sounds like it might be a little bit both than the average, but really, once you really see what's under the hood, it's one of the easiest plays out there. The real hard part is getting access to it. And so just like everything in private equity is access. Those are the main things. So actually the workout on HECMs is pretty favorable for those of us who are purchasing. So let's talk about what you're actually buying versus what you're not buying. And so we talked about that a little bit. You're still buying the loan, okay? But you're not getting that FHA insurance protection that comes with the loan for the people who are actually the borrowers. You're not getting servicing rights, right? Because there's no more servicing. The loan has now basically it's all but expunged, right? Because it still exists, but basically it's not active anymore. They don't have to service it because there's no one else paying the mortgage. And then any government guarantees that came along with that reverse mortgage are no longer included. So that's not going to transfer. But again, you are getting, which some of us are very familiar with, a first position lien and a distress note. So if you underwrite it with the expectation of you getting the property, you know how to handle that process, then you're definitely going to benefit from it. But just as a disclaimer, these loans no longer function as government protected products that they are once HUD issues them. All right. So let's talk about it. When and how do you make money off of this? Well, first and foremost, we don't get possession of the home nor get access to the loan until the borrower passes away. That's the main exit strategy for this. If the borrower gets put into a hospice or and I don't think hospice counts, they after the pass away. If they get put in assisted living, right, and they no longer can actually live there, then that's the other way, right? But once the borrower passes away, and when you're dealing with HUD, that's what you're dealing with. Okay, so when it gets to the auction, everyone has passed away, and the window that the heirs have to speak up has lapsed by then as well. So we'll get into that a little longer, but it's a real clean, non-performing note. Once the borrower passes away, first thing, the loan becomes due. Okay, so it's immediately payable. So that is, again, when the heirs have the right to buy it back from us, right? Because what happens is then the heirs technically inherit the home and the loan. So it's not just the home, they get the loan. So a lot of people may say, well, how do you feel comfortable working with this type of product? You're taking property away from older people. No, not at all. There's no taking, nothing. Okay. First thing is the person, while they were alive and fully cognizant, sat down and said, I would like to participate in the reverse mortgage program. It will be benefit to my life as I am here. And then the next step is they let all of their heirs know what they're doing. So there's no taking. That's step number one, right? It's something that's agreed upon. It was a deal that was made. And so now this is the bottom line of the deal, right? And so now the heirs in general, at the end, they're going to inherit. So we're still not taking it from them. They still inherit, but they're inheriting the debt too. So now they have, again, an option of paying us off the debt. But keep in mind, the debt has now appreciated, right? If mom and dad lived off of this equity in the house for the last 10 years, the equity that you thought may not be in the house anymore. So typically, when the house goes back to the heirs, if they're anywhere to be found, they now have to deal with the fact that the mortgage is now $1 million and the house is maybe worth 1.1, right? And so it's not what they thought it was because they lived off of it. So the heirs will typically let the house go back, but they have their options open and they have legally protected choices. They don't have to, and they never automatically waive their interest. Some of their choices are, one, they can pay us, they have to pay up to 95% of the value of the home if they want to buy it back, right? So you read in the fine print on the loans of what some of their options are, okay? And so they have definitely have a different, you would think, when it comes down to us actually taking possession of it, because typically, again, that debt has now, it's an upside down loan, or they have to come up with the money to pay it off. So it's usually an obstacle again, right, that they're dealing with. So understanding the heir rights is fundamental to really working through those timelines. And so what I will say to you is this: on this call, we have a lot of individual investors. Once you start running funds and taking down bulks at a time, especially with the HECMs and these reverse mortgages, the timeline is really where you're going to make your money, right? It's going to take X amount of time to do the foreclosure in each state. You're going to put that in there. But what you're really going to want to flex with, and where you're going to really make your money, is when you can shorten timelines by, one of the secrets that a lot of these funds do is they will go to the heirs who have now inherited the debt in the home and go to them, send a private investigator and say, hey, would you like to do a deed in lieu? You do that right now. You own it, deed in lieu of foreclosure. Now I get to avoid the auction. So if you really want a property and you want to avoid the auction, you can go on and find those heirs and get them to do a deed in lieu. They now own the home and the debt. Hopefully that makes sense. So when you think about the HUD auction, it's very competitive right now, right? And every year it gets more competitive. And the bigger guys are the ones buying a majority of the debt. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what price are they paying for it? Because as a small investor, I may not be able to pay, and how we talk about it is like a 16% yield or a 12% yield. That's what they're offering, right? To purchase at these auctions. And we're thinking, well, I need much higher than a 16% yield on these deals that I'm buying. So how can I compete? Well, again, they're able to offer at a 12, a 10% yield, because they have these other tricks up their sleeve, meaning they are planning on avoiding the auction. So as many of you guys are familiar with, when you have a property alone, you have to go through a foreclosure if it's a mortgage, which these are. And that sometimes is where you're going to get cut off at the knees or you're going to be purchased. If there's equity in the house, then at the auction, someone will pay you at the auction. And then that's what you take. So they have to pay you up to everything that's owed, so all your total debt, or you can accept less. Anything over that debt, so if you owed $500,000 and at the auction someone pays $600,000, you get your $500,000. That other $100,000 goes to the heirs. So once again, we're not taking anything from heirs. No one's losing equity, right? If there's anything left over, that goes to the heirs at the auction, which is why, as a lender, we prefer, and as someone who's investing in these mortgages, we prefer to try to avoid that auction, but also think of it as an exit strategy. So when you're pricing these, back to how do we make money on reverse mortgages, is by pricing accordingly, understanding the two exit strategies that we have to work around. One of them is, first, after we get it and we get to an auction, did we purchase it at a low enough value, whereas if someone pays us off at the auction where we can still make money? Because that's one of your exit strategies, and you have to be able to make money there, okay? If you did not, if you paid more than the debt is worth, then strategy, because if someone comes to the auction and pays you that, you have to take it, right? And so you can lose money in essence. So that's how the second thing that people do is they'll go and approach the heirs and do a deed in lieu so they can avoid the auction altogether, and bam, now they have the property. So if you're looking at this as an opportunity to acquire property, then consider working with me to talk to you about the exit strategies that can avoid the foreclosure auction and how successful you will be at that. Otherwise, just know, price accordingly. Price so that if you at least hit your margin. So if you're looking at a 20% on everything you do, then you buy that debt 20% lower than what they're going to owe you at the auction. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So then if you do get paid off at the auction, you have that baked in profit and you can go out and do it again, all right? Some of these auctions are a lot more active than others, and so I want to bring that up, right? Sometimes if you buy a house in the middle of Quinemo, Kansas, why do I know that place? Because I have something there. Auction may not be that crowded. You probably get to price the house back, right? You go to New York, trust and believe. They're going to be, that's a crowded auction. They're going to be there. So you want to price it accordingly. Hopefully that makes sense. So just kind of going through again, these legal options that the heirs have. So again, if you want to make sure, how do I invest in this and keep my contents clean? One, they can keep the loan if they want. They can keep the home. They just have to pay 95% of the appraised value or the loan balance, whatever is less. Step two, they can actually sell the property. I mentioned they own the debt and the property, so they can sell and pay off the home and pocket any remaining equity. A lot of these guys are going to be too lazy for that, though. Let's keep that in mind, okay? Have you met my son? Have you met your children, right? My son is the captain of an esports team. Nothing about that suggests that he wants to get off his butt and then go take care of an actual house. Okay, just giving him a hard time just in case he ever sees this video. I'm just kidding, son. But with that said, yeah, most of the heirs at this point in their life are not looking to go list a home and go through all that stuff and anxiety, so they'll just let it go. And again, knowing that if any equity is left over at the auction, it's going to them anyway, right? So pleasant surprise. So not a big deal. They can deed it back. So this is, again, talking about the deed in lieu that I mentioned to you. You'll probably have to be more proactive. So one of the things I would look at is a little hack for you. When I'm looking at these reverse mortgages, I would try to take the time to see how many heirs there are. Right? If you're looking at someone who's got 14, and I've seen this before, 14 heirs, you have to decide whether you want to go for that, because you're going to have to serve and find each and every one of them. I've done that before. If you find someone who has no heirs, one heir, then boom, you're in business, right? This might be more viable than the other one. So the one that absolutely happens most of the time is number 4, where they just walk away, right? Because as mentioned for them, they probably already divested themselves emotionally from the home. They may not have the money to purchase it back from you. They definitely don't want to put the time and the energy into selling the property, right? And if they walk away, they're going to get any excess over the loan anyway. And so unless they have direct contact with us as a bank to deed it back, they may not know about the option, they'll be interested in it. So we can go and find them, say, hey, sign this. That's a quick way to get to the profits and make sure you get to property. So hopefully that registered with everyone. Let's stop and talk about decisions. Right? How does it make sense, and how do you get this done? There's a decision window. So day 1, it becomes active when that borrower passes. Then the heirs are going to get notified of their options. Here's your option. There's 4 options. What do you want to do? First 2 to 3 months, the heirs have an option to evaluate the property, condition, and the equity position, decide what they want to do. But during this time, they have to maintain property taxes and insurance. So again, understand, even if you have 3 siblings, the 3 siblings in my family, or 4 of us, we barely even get along. We're dang sure not going to be figuring out how to share property taxes on homes that none of us are interested in moving in. We all have our own lives, right? So every family is different. But the moral of the story is keep in mind all of the things that they have to do to maintain position in this, and then you will understand why this is one of the easiest plays out there, right? We get this asset, go through foreclosure, pray it does or does not get purchased at the auction, and then we have the property back, and then we can move forward and do our rental, sell it as is, whatever it is that we decide to do. During the 6 month, that's typically the decision deadline. Okay, now, if they're heirs and they want, oh, we need 5 more days, we need an extension, most likely it's going to get granted to them, right? And so, again, keep in mind that making money in this is not really the grift that you may think it is. That's the new language out there. It's really a good option. Think about it this way. These products, there's a filtration system that has to be processed through in order for this to come out the other end, the pipeline. And we're part of that filtration system. So when HUD puts these loans out and eventually the borrower passes, they've got to get a way to get it back out onto the market, because HUD is not specialized in doing foreclosures, renovating in a house, putting it on the market. That's not their jam, right? So they've got to come to us. We do that. And that's how we get things out through the filtration system. So that's the way I like to look at it. But yeah, after month 6, they've got to make their deadline to make a decision what they want to do and exercise any of these options. After that, boom, it's such. Touchdown. Lender may proceed with the foreclosure if no action is taken. So I had a gentleman come into my office, the guy who's doing that Las Vegas deal I mentioned to you. I asked him, what has been the most painful thing about this note? When you do your testimonial, what are you going to tell him? He's like, oh, it took the time it took. It was just, could we just get off the phone with the attorney? And he said, what can I do to the attorney? And the attorney said, nothing. Just wait. He's like, I don't want to wait. So we get on the phone and he's like, man, the craziest thing is that I have to sit here and wait. And I was like, well, that's note investing, right? So understand that the whole purpose of having you walk through this is realizing in the end, yes, there are steps that has to be taken, but you have to have the patience and the capital to get through it. Otherwise, this is not a place for you to invest. And this is why a lot of the heirs don't end up making money here, or because there's extra capital that always has to be deployed when you're investing in notes. And then there's time. All right, so let's talk about this. The foreclosure, it is assumed it's not necessarily automatic. The foreclosure becomes a likely path once the heir options have expired or all those negotiations fail, okay? But these are administrative type of deals, right? It's not your investment objective, right? So it's just really a legal step that you have to go through, okay? So are there ways to get around it? Yes, I can talk to you guys offline about special masters if this ever comes down to, if you think that's something you want to do, but that's when you start getting tricky, right? To try to avoid some things to try to make more money off the house, which you totally can, right? Good news is that the borrower in this has passed away, so you really don't have to worry about them either standing in the way or you impeding upon their rights. So just know that this foreclosure is not assumed, because you can do a deed in lieu and there's other things you can do as mentioned, but your profit depends on what the next step is. And if it's a foreclosure, you have to keep that in mind when you go into the foreclosure auction. All right. Any questions on this? Definitely hold them till the end. We'll answer them. And then, of course, if you're a member, set up an appointment and we'll go through these. And then we have inventory. So hopefully we have time after this. And maybe one of our members will pull up the list so we can look at it. EJ, if you're there, maybe you can get the list ready. If you're not ready, then I'll have it. But yeah, we'll check out some actual inventory that will kind of coincide with this. So let's talk about the 3 primary exit paths. Getting back on track. How do we make money? We just really talked about how you work through it, what to expect, how do we get to the end, the finish line, but then how does that translate that into money? Well, as mentioned, an auction sale, that's your first exit strategy. So prices accordingly, right? Another bidder pays off the debt at the foreclosure auction. You will be profitable if and only if you paid less than what they pay you. So that's why with these, one of the most important parts is how you price on the front end, right? And you can explain that to those who want you to pay well over the payoff. Payoff is one thing, and you can pay over the UPB, but paying over the payoff is not suggested unless you know that you are going to avoid the auction, okay? And we talked about how you can do that. But again, it's least common for experienced investors to make money. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It's least common for inexperienced investors to make money here. However, experienced investors can figure out how to make money at this stage. Credit bid REO. What does that mean? So if you want the property back and there are other buyers out there, you can throw your hat into the ring, is what I like to say. And so the good news is that if you are owed $500,000 and someone is bidding 550,000 and that's a winning bid, you can credit bid. What does that mean in our language? Credit bid means I have a credit of $500,000 because that's the debt that's owed to me. I'm going to put that credit towards a balance, and I want the house back. So all I have to do is come out of my pocket with 50,000, right? And so now, or 50,001. Okay, so now I have a higher bid than the other guy, but I don't have to come out with the whole 500,000 and 50. I just come out with the difference. So I get a credit that I can apply to the bid to get the REO. It's the best way I'd like to say it. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, again, we'll have them at the end, or you can set up a call with me. But yeah, once you get it to an REO, then you're going to get a deed from the sheriff. It's the cleanest deed you can get. And you can go ahead and sell it as is to a cash buyer to minimize your holding costs and everything. And for the most part, that's one of the options that you're going to find out that you're going to have to use if it goes to an auction and you really want the property back. Otherwise, as mentioned before, avoiding the auction by getting a deed in lieu from heir or something like that, so that way you're not at the auction. But once you're at the auction, you take what they give you as long as they meet what you are owed. Anything over it, you don't have a choice. You have to take your money and leave. All right. So last thing is that you can do, let's say it goes to auction and nobody bids on it. So you don't have to do a credit bid because nobody's bidding on it. You just get it. It reverts back to you. Well, this is where you go out and you start taking care of it. Hopefully you price it right on the after repair value, so you can do lipstick on the pig. You can actually renovate it. You can keep it as a rental. But vacant HECMs often have hidden issues, but here's what I will tell you. If you're part of the NAP Nation program, you've seen real issues before, okay? HECMs, in the language of the contract, they are asked to maintain. So a certain part of the money that they are given monthly goes towards maintaining the property. So usually the biggest issue is not necessarily deferred maintenance because they're keeping up on that. Usually it's outdated, okay? And you want to update everything, right, in order to sell it. So for example, some of these homes may have wiring from like the 80s, right, before everybody had a tablet in their hand. So you may say, hey, I need to upgrade that wiring because, you know, again, there's going to be 16 screens on in this house, never mind if it's Sunday football, right? And so things like that, you may want to upgrade depending upon what your exit strategy is, but that's when you have the asset. So let's talk about alternative paths to getting the note conveyed to you, right? So this is, again, just covering that deed in lieu, which hopefully makes sense to most people. It's still going to require coordinating with the estate, someone to handle the probate and title insurance and lien releases. So all the paperwork is still going to remain the same. But again, if you can go in and negotiate with the estate itself and or the heirs, then you're going to have a much more straightforward way to get out of this. So we talked a lot about that. I'll keep moving on. But just to verify that profit is made at the offer. And like most deals out there, you make your money in the beginning. So success in reverse mortgage doesn't necessarily happen at the auction. It happens while you're underwriting it. So let's just recap everything we mentioned. You want to make sure you have a handle on what your after repair value is. You want to have cushion on there. If you think we're going to recession, then know that on average, unless you're looking at New York and California, the average during a recession, the home prices drop anywhere from like, I don't know, 4 to like 8%, right? And so you really won't see that big of a drop. So if you have equity in there, just make sure that you have enough to foresee the other side of whatever it is while the timeline's going. Heirs and their rights, we talked about that. Repair risk, realistic timeline modeling, right? Some states will take a long time. So if you're in New York, buckle up, buttercup, right? You're still going through that foreclosure. It's not going to be contested, so it shouldn't be on the longer side, but you're probably still looking at 2 to 3 years just because they're backed up. Judges are on vacation and they've got piles of cases like this, not because it's contested. Heaven forbid if it was contested, that's when you get into that 3 plus 5, 6 years, right? But even New York, if you're looking at New York, this is a great way to get into the New York market because now you can actually put a handle. It's going to take me 2 to 3 years to get through this, not to be confused with 6 to 4 to 6, right? So, and again, once you start buying in bulk, just understand that your timeline is the thing that you're really trying to manage. It doesn't matter what the interest rate was, obviously, on a reverse mortgage. Doesn't matter how seasoned it was. All these other things are really negligible when it comes down to just how quickly can I get in and out of it. So that's what we're managing at the RDMO fund that we're running here. So that's really it. I'm going to tell you that it's going to be quite a disciplined approach. If you're out here buying reverse mortgages, patience. But the good news is this is something that's scalable and that you can repeat. So because you're part of this community, you will be getting access as I can to reverse mortgages that you can buy one-offs. Okay. It's not going to be as fluent, but that's a new product coming to our trade desk. And so that is a direct result of us working with PIMCO Capital. And then you also have an access if you want to get involved with them and not own it yourself and work it, to get involved with the fund. Our fund is going directly to HUD auction and buying them. And we're implementing this from an institutional side. So you'll have an opportunity to take advantage of it from that standpoint and be very passive as well. That is it for me. I'm going to land this plane. Thank you for your time today. Let's see if you have any questions, anything that you wanted me to revisit about this, or just give me some feedback. Does anyone, was that helpful to anyone? By show of hand, does that clarify anything for anyone who would call?
Very helpful.
Perfect. Do you mind telling what way? Name one thing that you benefit from if you don't?
So, one of the things that I benefited from was a strategy of if you are going to foreclosure, that it still has the attributes of a non-performing loan essentially, but it just requires it requires a different path whereas you reach out to the any heirs or anything like that, as opposed to it's either all or none, you know.
Yeah, and recognizing that voice, you have a lot of experience in dealing with these non-performers. So now it sounds a little bit more complicated and nuanced, but I'm sure now that you're here, you can realize, oh yeah, I can handle this, right? And especially when it comes to finding the heirs, like that's just putting some money out there and getting a private investigator or, you know, skip search and all that stuff. So yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks for that feedback. Anyone else?
I guess I'll jump on in. Just my question is along the lines of pricing, from let's just say a percentage of market value. Because when I was looking at the HUD website, it looked as if the institutions that were buying at a 65 to 70% of kind of where that market value is. So I'm just trying to figure out kind of pricing from a spread standpoint, because again, everyone has to make money. Like where that pricing needs to be so that everyone wins. Hold on, I think you're muted. I'm not hearing. Is it just me?
No, you're right. Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. I'm digging in. Okay. So I said, that's a great question. And that cuts into what I was talking about before when I was saying them buying at a 10, 12% yield, right? So let me slow down and translate that to you, because that's exactly what that means. I mean, if you look on the HUD website, you're going to go, dang, these guys are pricing this stuff up. They're paying at 65%. How am I going to make money off it? Is that kind of what you're?
Yep. That's exactly what I'm asking. Yep.
Okay. So believe it or not, I just showed you how they're making money off. This is why they don't want me around, because I'm telling all the secrets. So first of all, on those properties that they have marked it up so high, basically when I say 10, 12% yield, that's what they're going to make on the end per their calculations if they go through it the regular route. So if they go to the auction, they get bought out, it's like 10, 12% yield. So again, how's anyone going to make money off of that? So that is how they get to competitive edge. They will go in. There's one company who I will name, keep the name out of this until we're recording, who I know them very well. They used to be named something else back in the day. They now have rebranded, and they went and bought over 60% of the loans that you saw there, they purchased themselves. So you have to ask yourself, how do they make money? They bought up 60%, they're paying 65%. Well, their plan is to go and knock on these guys' doors and get to the heir. They have private investigators on their payroll. That's what these funds do. And they are going to roll out, okay? When they got this HUD list last month, they already had their private investigators knocking on their door trying to find out who was going to cooperate with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so this is sort of step one. So definitely keep that in the mind, because just because the funds do it doesn't mean that you can't do it. And it might be something you want to do too if you have the price more aggressive. The secret sauce, though, to winning, again, if you're at HUD auction, it's going to be hard for you to compete against those guys that are dropping $400 million, period, amen. just because of the volume they're buying, never mind that they can afford to. So the trick is not only that you have the ability to do the same thing, which is get the air, but also if you were looking at those if you're pricing it accordingly. So there are some of those that you can price and win, but you're gonna have to price it based off of somewhere between the UPB and that payoff, right? And leave enough room for you so you make money at the auction should someone buy it from you. And so that's where you're gonna have to price to win. And you're gonna lose a lot of times to the bigger boys if they're gonna be able to price aggressively. But when we go to the auction, we have maybe 20% that we win, and those are gonna be in states that people don't like to go into, right? So if you go to a New York City, you're gonna more likely get lower prices because most people stay away from New York City. Okay, so you have a better chance. So knowing what states are gonna be less popular and having a better chance at bidding and getting stuff there, you're gonna get. We got, I think we bid, I want to say 12 million, and we got like 2 million. Right? So just think about that type of odds. So that's one other trick that you can use. Go to the states that people are less likely to invest in because they're scared. And so again, recognizing that voice, if it's who I think it is, you're on the East Coast. Everyone's scared of where you are, right? Except for you. So that's another place for you to start looking to be able to get more aggressive with your pricing. The last trick I will tell you is, let me lose my train of thought. Find and bulk into them. Shoot, got the last trick for pricing. I'll have to come back to me. Did anyone else got another question? I can't believe I just lost my train of thought. Hold on to that thought. I'll get right back to you.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yes.
So when it comes to these, I know they're HUD. When it comes to the foreclosures, are they subject to HUD rules for foreclosure or each individual state's foreclosure law?
States.
Okay.
Each state.
Okay.
Great question. Yeah, basically HUD, everything HUD falls off once they put it on the auction. All right, I do remember what I was going to say. The third way to win, and this is one of our secrets at PEMCO, is we go after the notes that are upside down. Okay? So whenever there's more math involved, there's less people involved. Just a fact. Okay, so it's a rare person that can look at a mortgage that's upside down. And what I mean by upside down, meaning the mortgage is higher than the value of the property. And so most people, just like I said, there's certain states that everyone runs away from, is, oh, New York, right? And then you're a New Yorker and you're like, what? Right? So same thing is that the other places on that spreadsheet that people avoid is, oh, there's a lot of money. People will stop doing it. They just go somewhere else. So most people look at anything that's upside down, and only 10% of the investors will actually bid on those. So we end up finding that we're the only one bidding on things that are upside down because everyone else can't figure out how to make it work, or the math just scares them. It's not complicated math, I'll be honest with you, and we can meet on that when you have a chance. I won't go into that too much here, but bidding on, just like everything in life, going where there are less people is how you're going to win. Was that helpful?
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so we get better opportunities on anything that's upside down, and then just to do a quick synopsis on that, you price that according to the value of the home. That's just a real quick math behind that, but we can get into that at another date if you're interested. But it's all real simple, rudimentary math. When it comes down to it, it's just where and how to apply it, and then how it's going to process at the end. So hopefully that was helpful. Anybody else?
I just had a question regarding, you get one of these HECMs and say an heir or there's a squatter in the house, like you go to foreclose, you still have to evict them, depending on the state laws?
Yeah, great question. So here's how I'll address that. HUD has two separate auctions. They have one auction where all the homes are verified to be vacant. This next tranche, they've just let us know that they're going to start putting notes on the market that they do have people inside of them. That'll either be a squatter or a family member who has to be put out. So then you have to do the eviction. But the good news is that you show up to the auction you want. If you want to deal with nobody inside, then go to these ones, the ones that are verified vacant. This next one, not in February, I think it's going to be vacant, but the next one, they will tell you that these all have people inside of it. So HUD's very good at separating them and making sure you know what you're buying before you buy it so you can go through. And I would imagine with the ones that have people inside of it that you can price a little bit more aggressively because you have to go that extra step, right? So like New York City, right, it might take a year to evict, so you have to do that math on that too.
Okay, and then also too, with the HECMs you have available, are there any BPOs that have availability for inside and outside of the house, or are there BPOs available on the due diligence files?
Great question. Now, HUD gives a ton of information. I'm glad you brought that up so I can actually pull up the file while we're here and we can actually take a look at the tape before we get off of this call. So, HUD provides tons of information. So what I'm going to be asking them is to get us a whole data room. But yes, in the data room, typically they have photos of the property. They go out and do their own BPOs. The other hack about this, I need to let you know, and I shouldn't be giving everything away, but of course, with education, most people won't show it. But you can't really trust, just like normal, like I teach you before. Don't really believe the BPOs that they take and the stuff. They'll give you their BPOs and appraisals, but they're usually undervalued, right? So you have to really know your stuff, just like everything else. But yeah, in general, they should have some fairly recent photos. So they go in there and they load them up there. So when I get the data room, I will share with you everything that they have. The main thing that you want to do with these is verify the taxes, and you want to look at the title, but HUD guarantees that the title and the taxes are taken care of. If for some reason you find out that they are not, then what I can tell you is all you have to do is submit a request to a ticket to HUD, and then they'll either reimburse you for them, pay them, or buy the note back.
Okay, and then at what point do we have to put FPI on it?
So FPI, for everyone that's forced place insurance, what I would say is, because of the nature of the product, you're going to board it just like a regular loan, right? And so as soon as you get it, you're going to throw it up with the insurance. Yeah, throw it up there with the with your servicer. So you're going to have to keep that in your budget, because you're going to have to negative remittance for a while, because you're going to be paying your servicer. And then, yes, you're going to want to get an insurance. I don't know it's going to be an FBI. It's probably going to be just a basic REO policy. But again, I'm not an insurance expert or anything. But just because there's no borrower, you might not have to get the forced place, but maybe it's the same policy. But definitely, same thing like a regular note. As soon as you transfer it over, you're going to want to make sure that insurance is there too.
Okay, so the servicer will treat it as an NPN, like a normal
100%.
NPN. Okay. And then just to circle back, I'm sorry, that might be PO question.
No.
I guess I was really focusing on like if they have like interior pictures, so you kind of have an idea of what the interior picture is. I understand trust but verify.
Yes, and we should have, every now and then they're not in there, but they next to put interior photos and as many photos as they can on the property, because again, once the person passes, then they can just go, you know how it is, just like a normal non-conforming note. You have a chance to go and look at it beforehand, and now there's nobody. So we should be able to provide you with interior photos for every last one of these. Obviously, there may be some exceptions, but I'll get them for you. So what are the steps? If you're part of the community, you know what to do, right? Put in your availability check. We have to buy a minimum of 5 of these at a time. So put your availability check in there. It's not binding, but at least let us know, hey, put these aside while we're finishing our due diligence. I'll go get the data room, get you everything you need to do your due diligence on it. And then I will combine all the interest, and we will all go to the close, and the first 5 close that way. Next 5 close that way. So we can technically cherry pick individually, but we have to close at a minimum package of 5. Okay.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I have one more question. For the colder states, is there a way to verify if it was winterized or not, if they're vacant?
That is a great question. I'll have to check the data room. That information should be in there. If I remember correctly, that's one of the things that HUD does right away, but don't quote me on that. So let's go ahead and get that information and find out. But that is a great question. And just for those of you who are listening to us at a later date, or if you're on here now, again, identifying voices, that is someone who's very seasoned. These are questions that are coming from someone who's been down the block before. So if you're like, dang, I didn't think about that. Also, because it comes with being seasoned and working with a lot of non-performing notes. So that's a great question. And what I'll do is get back to you on that and put it on your Trello card.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
I got a question.
Mhm.
When it comes to the rights of the borrower's children, does that count as a redemption period in certain states that have redemption periods, or are those 2 separate occasions?
Yeah, no, it's not bundled up in a redemption period, and there's going to be no redemption with these. You're just going to be waiting on the heirs because of the product.
Okay.
So that's really, yeah, and that's also another good question because you might think, well, do I have to combine it? Do I have an extra timeline? So yeah, so I would just say everything is going to be the same except for now you don't, again, the borrower is not there to come and redeem, and the heirs have a certain amount of time to speak up, forever hold their peace. So the redemption period is going to be null and void because there's nobody there to redeem. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. And no, that was it. That was it. Oh, no. So as far as the pricing guidance for these, is it's best or final? Is there when you say you package them in fives, is there a guarantee? There's no guarantee that, like, if there's a group of four, like if everybody gets it and then the last group is four, then those four are gone, or is the whole deal gone?
Yeah, I have a good relationship with the seller. This seller is the one that sold us that. For those of you who've been around, we bought that 858 property in the Bronx. So I have a good relationship with them. They're most likely going to let the deal go through. They want to sell stuff. We've done deals together, so we'll probably, you know, again, when we get to 5, then I'll be able to apply more pressure for pricing, so we can probably get what we want. So we have a good chance it's not one of these hardballers or these guys that are just out there being, you know, jacks about it. So this is a good guy with a good relationship with his company. In that case, I would imagine that we'll be able to close on them. We hit the target 5, and I might have more leverage to make sure that all the pricing gets done correctly. But yeah, it should be a fairly pleasant experience, again, because we have a relationship with the company that's selling these.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course. So while I'm wrapping this up, for those of you who may have other questions, got about 10 more minutes. I'll hang out here. But again, know that you do have access to me. So just reach out to the trade desk. I would say submit your availability checks, whether you want the property or not, and you're still doing it. That way we can let him know that we have eyes on it. Because as of January, he's putting these out to everyone. He called me, just in full transparency, a few days after Thanksgiving, when I was driving home from Texas, and I just was having, you know, it's been a very interesting year for me. So I told him if they're still available in January, we'll come after them, but I didn't want to hold them back, right? And so he held them down. Obviously, holidays, people were flying around, so I'm imagining people are going to be coming back and starting to look at these. So if you have anything you're interested in, just send me the address so I can at least put it on and be like, we got first dibs. And then we come back and let it go if you don't want to put offers on it. But let us know what you're interested in. JVing, may I highly recommend. We've got Texas in here. We got some great places. So I want to land the plane by saying this. There are going to be a lot more NPNs coming down the pipeline because of who we have relationships with and because how we've grown this company. And I have to say thank you to everyone, okay? But because of that, we are now going to have access to reverse mortgages on a regular basis, okay? How many, pricing, that's to be said, but we will have access to them. Will it be to the fund or just going to the auction? Other thing, if you have your own group of people and you want to put together your own mini fund, that's what PEMCO Capital is here for. You got to have a minimum of $3 million. If you have $3 million or so with you and your friends, come in and you can just hire PEMCO Capital. And now you're a general partner of your own fund, and we just are here doing the workout for you. So you have an institutionally managed fund. These are the opportunities that I've been dying to bring to this community. So keep that in mind. Not only the inventory, but the access to the professional management, you do have access to them as well. And then just being around them and learning, right? Learning what you can for them. So come to any of the calls. We're having a monthly PIMCO meeting for the RDMFO2 fund. If you want to be included in that, let me know. It is for those investors, but if you're part of the community, you know, I'll sneak you, right? Get in so you can hear what we're talking about, how it's going with us. But I want you guys to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be around. And if you look at this, we've got states, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia, Michigan, everything that we ever wanted state-wise on this tape. So I will lastly say that if, again, you don't want to do, right, Indiana, the fund or anything, reach out. A lot of interest in this community to do a joint venture on these. These are capital gains plays, right? Capital gains is where you really want to jump in and do these non-performers and get with someone like EJ. If I can shout you out, I know that's you out there. He has a lot of experience. He'd be happy to walk you through what it takes to do a non-performing note, right? Obviously bring the capital to the table, but if you don't want to do it by yourself, am I speaking too much, EJ? Is that right?
Oh no, that's absolutely right. I'm working on a non-performer right now, and I actually got somebody that's interested that I'm working with right now to do a couple of more non-performers. So whoever's interested, please let me know.
Yeah, so I know we have a lot of people. I think Tehran's out there. I think I heard some. Anyway, whoever's out there, just know that if you're looking for a joint venture, let the trade desk know, and we'll start shopping around for you as well. But that's our job here, is to help you guys get into these investments come hook or crook, all right? That's it for me. Anybody else? Any more questions? Want me to stick around? You want to see anything specific on this tape? Well, then I thank you for your time. We're going to end this podcast here. I'm going to go pick up my son. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Jazz. Have a good one.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night.